This is designed to be more conversational. It's intended to try to feel comfortable as though a person is talking to you, not have that kind of a stoic or static kind of response that you might feel from a technical manual or something of that sort. Even in asking technical questions, it's supposed to have been massaged that way to do that. When it is giving you a response to a question, whatever question you may ask, and we're going to look at some questions in a moment, but when it's responding to that question, it's not doing a search of the internet and trying to find the best answers, okay? This is one of the issues I see as a huge problem. It's a huge limitation too. When you go out, and now Google has 90+% of search engine traffic, I believe. I don't remember the exact number. But of all the search engines, whatever it is you use, when you search, it's going to give you a list, right? And advertisers and others, they work really hard in their marketing to get their items, their store, their business, their topic, whatever it is, on the front page of Google, right? Because people just don't scroll down that far. Now, what happens though, let's just take the issue like abortion. You're asking some kind of a question about abortion. You put that in there. In a search engine, it's going to pop up and you're going to see here's 5 different responses. Well, you can see one of them is from the Family Research Council. One of them is from Planned Parenthood. One of them is from, and name some others. So it may be depending on your own bias, obviously, but you get the chance to look at that search result and you're going to determine, well, I may look at both of those, but do I prefer to look at the Planned Parenthood response, or do I prefer to look at the Family Research Council response, right? You're making that choice. In Chat GPT, when it responds to you, it's not searching the internet for the best responses. It's putting together basically a response to you based on all the information it's been trained on already, okay, that's already been inputted. So it may be something that sounds like, taking the abortion issue, it may be something that sounds like it came right from a Planned Parenthood website, or it may be something that sounds like it came straight from Family Research Council. Before we look at some specific questions, you guys respond. What are your thoughts on kind of what I've done setting this up right now?
Well, it falls along the line of where are they getting their information, and then you have to deal with it, since it's human driven. It's scary in a sense of, okay, is there a particular point of view that said human is rewarding or punishing this bot in its responses? So yeah, it's questionable at best. And I know we're going to look in a little bit about some of the responses to the questions that were asked as we look at it, but to me, it's middle of the road stuff, right? It's not either or. They rarely give you it rarely gives us or has given us a black and white answer, and I think that's probably the human part.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think too, it's it almost seems like a regression, right? In the sense that, and the more I live, and I'm sure we all probably have some level of this, the more we think, wait a second, how are we here? I mean, just, take segregation, for example. That used to be a horrible thing back in the day. Now there's leftists and woke people who are saying safe spaces, no more white people, and we're segregating again. Or we don't know what a woman is or a man is or a border or a baby or a marriage. And it's like, there's all this, like, we're regressing back to the Middle Ages or back to pre-Christ, 2,000, 2,500 years ago, weird Babylonian, which gets into a whole other conversation about, ancient mysticism and spirituality and demonic and all that other stuff. But I'm not saying all of this is that, but it's weird because you can punch into Google, searches the World Wide Web, 4 billion results or whatever it is in half a second. And you'll look at abortion, you think, well, Planned Parenthood, okay, they're that's what they do. They kill babies. Okay. Well, these people over here, well, there's this, but I'm going to weigh all that. And depending on your worldview, you're going to sift that out versus asking this thing. Abortion is what going to say just ending a pregnancy? What's it going to say? Killing a human? Is it say, oh, it's a woman's right to choose? What's it going to say? It's only going to say one answer. It might have a multi-sentence answer, but why is it just one answer? Right. And it seems like it's
Well,
almost
and
setting up to make it like, oh, we don't need all that extra stuff. You guys are too dumb to handle that, which gets into a whole other conspiracy theory. But anyway,
well, let's don't try to stir up another conspiracy theory. But what it makes me think of, now it says of itself, if you ask it, what are you? It basically will respond and say, well, it's a learning model. Okay. And it's an advanced language learning model. And it's to be learning as it goes, as such as people respond, and it develops and it broadens. But as I showed you those steps of how it's gone through this training, a reward punishment kind of deal, and kind of been shaped, at least initially, in that. I just find it interesting. I saw an interview with a software engineer, and he had this prediction. He said there are a large number of jobs that will be eliminated within probably the next 5 years. In fact, one of the things that this can do is you can take code, like say, for instance, a website, and put it in. Now, I'm not a big coder like you guys may be and others may be, but you can take coding, just take your HTML code off of your website, and there's a problem. You can't get it to fix something. You can drop that code into Chat GPT, say, fix this code, drop that in there, and it will repair the code and give you the response. Now you can take the code, drop it right back in your website, and it's repaired. So there are certain jobs, like a radiologist or something else, where the computer is going to be able to do the job significantly better than an individual. So one of the things I want us to get into here in a minute is, the idea of, ministry, and what we do in churches is relational. This the chatbot can't be relational, but this is presenting itself in a relational manner. It's designed to be very conversational, to be as if I'm talking to my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, whoever. In fact, I saw one interviewer who said, well, let's try this. Give me the response to this. And then he went back and he said, can you give me that response in the voice of Joe Rogan? And it retyped the response and said it in a way that Joe Rogan might typically say it, on his podcast or somewhere else. Now, that's incredible. That's phenomenal. But that's the kind of learning it continues to generate at that point. So before we get too back deep in the weeds in that, let's go back and look at some of the questions. Now, the three of us kind of talked about it ahead of time, and we brought it down to just about 5 or 6. So let's look at this real quickly. We see the question that I inputted was, how can I go to heaven? And what are your observations, guys, real fast, about how the chatbot responded? Now, let me just say this. All of the questions that I put in and I'm showing you, I didn't try to get into the back and forth conversationally, like in responding to a specific part of the question. It can do that, and it will correct itself. One of its limitations, admittedly, by OpenAI, is that it can get things wrong, but it also has the intelligence, call it that, to be able to correct itself if you can show it reason to correct itself. So in spiritual matters, that gets really foggy pretty quick at that point. So that said, the first question that we're looking at is, how can I go to heaven? A question that a lot of people might ask in a kind of generic way. What are your guys' observations about the way the chatbot responded?
So one of the big issues here for me is it's as if we're pulling the ignorance. And it's not an issue of, okay, what is true or what is false in how this thing answers. It answers in such a way that it's like we're watching a political debate where none of the candidates will answer the doggone question that's being asked. And they just keep tap dancing. And that's, you see it here, especially when it says, in general, most people believe that living a good, virtuous life, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily. And who are most people, and where are they getting their information? Again, it goes back to the rabbit hole I think we're going down with in this technology, is that it's still, there's going to be bias if it's human based. There's just going to be bias. I would be biased if I had anything to do with training the chat bot that answers this question. Obviously, because where I stand, that heaven is there's only one way, and our Lord has told us that the only way to heaven is through Him. So of course I would be biased, and again, as we look through these, you're going to see sort of the same language of just a real generic answer.
Yeah, Richard, do this for us. Read the last two sentences, starting with "however," and after you read that, make a comment about how it finishes up the paragraph.
However, it's important to note that these beliefs about heaven vary greatly and may not be based on fact. Interesting. Ultimately, the decision about whether or not you go to heaven is up to your individual belief system. Yeah, that's deeply problematic for the fact that you just said fact, right? Fact implies something is wrong, implies there's the opposite is false, right? It implies absolutes. You can't have something that's factual and non-factual at the same time. And ultimately something like a destination after you're dead, well, it really just depends on your individual system. Really? But you just said that it's not based on fact, or it is based on fact. It doesn't really matter whether they're based on fact or not. Not necessarily based on fact. Like, so is there actually a heaven? Not. If there's no heaven, then your belief system it's irrelevant, because there is no heaven, right? If there is, the fact is there is no heaven. But if there is a heaven, as the Lord tells us there is, or if it's, you have to serve Allah and, die in holy war, or you get 3 levels of heaven, like some say, or there's this, or reincarnation, there's a plenary answer, yet it's pulling and appealing to facts, which that's deeply fascinating, to say the least.
Well, and I think our
really
consensus here is pretty much that although I can see that being a question that a lot of people might ask who are unbelievers in the sense of not Christian and are seeking answers, are on a spiritual journey, asking questions, wanting to know. I can see that to be a question that someone may hear just from picking up in a conversation or seeing something in print, on the internet, on TV, somewhere, and say, well, I'm just curious. Well, how can I go to heaven? And I guess obvious follow-up questions to this would be to challenge the learning, which apparently it's already had, on those, what are the moral and ethical guidelines of the religion? How do you determine that? How is this based on, why is it not based on fact? There's lots of questions. So let's don't get bogged down on this one. Let's go ahead and look at the next one that we put up as well. What do you feel? My screen's covered up. Can you guys see what one of you read that question?
What to do when you feel scared or overwhelmed?
Yeah, there it is. Sorry, my control bar is over that. Okay, this is an interesting question as well. And this is a characteristic of ChatGPT that I saw in a number of different questions and in what others were asking in different categories, but oftentimes it'll give you bullet points. I even saw one, the software programmer I was telling you about that I saw, he went in and asked ChatGPT to, he said, if a doctor and a hospital or a surgeon in a hospital are not available, tell me how to perform some kind of really complex surgery of the frontal lobe of some sort. And it went through this kind of a thing, and just step 1, 2, 3, a lengthy process of this is what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Peel back this part of the skin. I mean, it was incredible. So depending on what's there, it has the ability to itemize a lot of things. So in this case, it gives some suggestions. So what are your responses to some of these suggestions if somebody with some spiritual curiosity is asking this kind of a question?
I mean, you have to ask why, right? I mean, do you feel overwhelmed? Okay. Then you're feeling like there's some sort of expectation that, you're not meeting, or you're scared. Well, why are you scared? You're not, again, meeting some expectation. You're scared of COVID. You're scared of dying. You're scared of being an embarrassment. You're scared of not having the right worldview. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine being, I mean, our oldest is 12 years old, and I mean, we homeschool, and she's actually in a private school. Everybody else is homeschooled, but it just works out and better for her. But anyway, I couldn't imagine being like in government school, public school. Like it just, especially in most areas where it's just, there's constant, and the barrage of Instagram and TikTok and just the constantness. I mean, there's so much depression and so much anxiety, especially in the last few years with school closures and shutdowns and everything like that.
Okay, so spiritually speaking,
yeah.
with these response that we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 bullet points. Okay. I mean, personally, spiritually speaking, I don't have a real problem with saying, hey, take a few deep breaths. That'll help relax you, calm you. I mean, that I don't have a problem with that. I mean, that's probably a good idea. You know, my mom and dad always said, relax, count to 10, you know, same kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so, but some of these others do, I mean, as far as someone who's seeking answers, I mean, is there a problem with what it's given? I know that as ministers, we would want to see more and you know, have a more spiritual response, but any issue with what's there particularly, Matt?
So Richard, you're right. I mean, this probably potentially could be a question that gets asked a lot, or at least a derivative of this question. And I think what you said, Richard, in the pre-show is, this is a little creepy, right? This comes off as just a little creepy. And no, I don't necessarily have issue with the options, but why isn't one of the options put down the gun?
Right. Pray or anything, right?
I mean, there's so many options out there.
Yeah.
That again, now we're starting to wade into the bias that's there and this generic answer for something that, I mean, we could have, there could be clinical issues here. I'm trying to look back over it. I don't see anything about talking to a physician or, or seeking a counselor or anything like that. It's this human bias based thing. And again, I guess, if we read this stuff long enough and we ask enough questions, we're probably going to see just how humanistic it really is, from the answer to the suggestions, right?
And let's go back to what I said just a minute ago. Remember, this is taking information that's already been inputted. It's been inputted into it. So you as a user, you're not getting options. Okay.
Right.
It doesn't say if you're seeking spiritual relief, if you're seeking psychological relief, if you're seeking physical. I mean, there are lots of ways to, if you're scared or overwhelmed, there are a lot of outside sources that could be impacting that. Remove yourself from a particular environment or whatever. So you're not getting options here, right?
Right.
So like if you're doing a search engine on Google or something else, you can see, boom, 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 boom. Here's a number of different places, maybe Psychology Today, and maybe, God's Word for you, or I'm just making stuff up. But you see what I'm saying? In a search engine, you actually have choices that you can make. Let me ask this question. We probably need to come back and dialogue this a little bit more after we look at all the questions. But is this the kind of response that you as a pastor, because all of us are pastors, if somebody in your community who your church is seeking to reach, you're trying to connect with, and there's a spark of spiritual curiosities come up in them, and they go to ChatGPT and they type in this question, are you satisfied as a pastor this is the kind of response they got and they don't have any other choices at this point?
No, I wouldn't be satisfied with this answer. If I gave this answer, I wouldn't be satisfied with myself for giving this answer.
No.
Or if I heard that this answer was given, in a relational type setting, it would be suspect to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not helpful, like you said a moment ago. It's really, I think you said generic, and it really is this lowest common denominator based sort of. There really is no supernatural. There really is no God. There really is no spiritual entity. You really don't have a soul. It's really just kind of all in your head. If you want to think that, that's cool. I mean, I would wager large sums of money, though I'm a Baptist, so I can't. And I also don't have money. But it's something that this is the thing, right? This is the worldview they have. And likely this is what the nerdy computer programmers, not to insult them, but the guys that are sitting on their computers programming this thing away, they're not Christians. I guarantee it. They're not slaves of Christ, looking to his word and praying, and all this other
that's
stuff.
where we go back into that human bias. There has to be some kind of a human bias, apparently, at least early on. And I'm not sure as it develops more and more how much the bias continues or would continue to be as evident,
Well, and if you let's go back to that just real quick. If you look at answer 4 or option 4, if you can go back, try a relaxation technique such as meditation or deep breathing exercises. I mean, seems to me there's a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
Right.
And it already told you to take deep breaths to begin with, right? I mean, calm your mind. I mean, you're going to give 6 answers and 2 are the same, 3 are the same. Like, it's kind of silly.
Yeah. So, I mean, apparently there's something at work here, because praying wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let me make mention of this. This is interesting. What does the Bible say about, it's under my thing again. One of you guys read it.
What does the Bible say about marriage?
Okay, marriage. I couldn't see the last word. What does the Bible say about marriage? In the 25 questions that I asked ChatGPT in testing this, none of the responses it gave me back referred to the Bible. The word Bible was never used, nor a scripture reference was ever used. Okay, let's just sit on that for a minute. The only time we got anything referencing the Bible is when I intentionally asked this question of what does the Bible say about marriage? And then it's like it went to a Strong's Concordance and searched Bible or searched marriage and gave us these questions. But what are your guys' thoughts about this at this point when you look at it? In fact, I tell you what, let me read the final concluding paragraph here. It says, overall, the Bible emphasizes the importance of marriage as a sacred institution, and it encourages spouses to love, respect, and support each other. It also emphasizes the importance of remaining faithful to one's spouse and avoiding actions that would harm the marriage, such as adultery. Any problem with that closing paragraph?
No.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah, okay, a little vague, but
yeah, I was going to say it's a little squishy, but
but it gives 4 scripture references. It gives the actual passage and shows the passage as a starting point. If a person said, what does the Bible say about marriage? I'm personally okay starting with this. It's starting with a good foundation. But what it assumes is that the person who has that curiosity asks very specific, because that could be, what does the Quran say about marriage? What does some other, what are ancient marriage teachings about marriage or something else at that point? So anyway, I just found it real interesting that of all the responses, the Bible being the most read book in all of history, the most published book in all of history, the longest written book in all of history, that of all the questions that we asked that were of a spiritual nature, none of them gave a reference directly back to the Bible. So I thought that was quite interesting. Let's go on to the next question so we don't get bogged down too long here. Okay. We asked that question, what is a woman? This is the question Matt Walsh has kind of made famous in his movie that he put out, almost a year ago, I guess now, or something like that.
Something like that.
But it's caused all kinds of upheaval. What do you guys think about the way this responded to what is a woman?
Yeah, I mean, I think a woman is a female human being. Typically, a woman is an adult, although the term used refer to girls or young women. I mean, it goes on. It's pretty specific. It's not generic. It doesn't say, I'm not a biologist, which is helpful, unlike our newest SCOTUS judge. But, I mean, it's still, there's still some beyond these biological differences, however, experiences, roles can vary greatly across different cultures and society. Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably leaning in the right direction. It's fairly middle of the road, but still, it's not saying, oh, I don't know, or it's whatever anybody wants it to be or something like that. That would be obviously terrible. So I don't really have much of a problem with it at all.
Yeah, I think it covers both sides of the argument. In a sense, and I agree. This is far more specific than the rest of them that we've looked at so far. But I think it covers the argument.
I told you guys before we went on that I didn't enter this question, but I saw someone else did when I was researching this. They said, is a trans woman a woman? I think was the way they phrased it. And its response was, yes, a trans woman is a woman if they identify as a woman. And then it gave what we have heard basically is the typical kind of a response, even though it's biologically male. And it stated, a trans woman is a biological male, but they identify as, then it went into the whole identity kind of a thing. And I thought, wow, that's pretty different. This pretty well tells you what a woman is, a good bit of specificity, like you mentioned. But yet, if you ask this same question comparatively, is a trans woman a woman, then it sides on that as well. Yeah, if they identify as that. So I thought that was interesting as well. Looking back at these questions, and like I said, I inputted a bunch more when I was kind of messing with it. It has some fun opportunities, with the chat bot, because it is designed to be interactive directly with you, so you can ask it to tell you a joke about something in particular. It'll tell you a joke. You can do that. You can have it write a story for you, write a story for me, including this, and this, or in a certain environment or certain kind of people or whatever. And it'll create a story, 4 or 5 paragraphs of that sort. It can create, a blog post for you. Please write me titles for a blog post on, and you describe what your blog post is on. And it may give you 4 or 5 suggested titles to use. You may say, give me an opening paragraph for something, and it will write that kind of an opening paragraph. So when we look at ministry and church ministry and that kind of thing, you look at it and say, wow, a pastor or a Sunday school teacher or somebody else could say, hey, I want to, teach a message on the woman at the well. What would be a good sermon title or a good Bible study title for the woman at the well? Or what would be, a good introductory paragraph for teaching on the woman at the well from the Bible? And it will generate something of that sort. Let's talk about the ethics of this. Let's talk about the dangers and the cautions of some of this, not just these spiritual questions that people may be asking, but how does this impact in the church? Matt, what do you think?
Well, it's scary, right? It's just another step down. When you start talking about it generating the work for you, at least as someone who's preaching every week, I can see the temptation that would be there. With all the workload that we have, I can see the temptation that would be there. But then again, what do you cite? And, how do you, it opens up this whole other can of worms. And then if it's good, and knowing me, I'll say me, knowing me, if I get a good response, I'm going to be much more likely to want to go back to, somebody else writing my sermons and this smart bot, helping me get there. For general, facts, the onus is on the questioner, right? And I guess part of it is that if you ask, hey, take John 3:16, what are some good sermon titles for that? If you're not a creative person, honestly, I don't see anything that would be terrible about that. But when you say I need 3 points in a poem from John chapter 3, then it gets scary. I was reading something that said one of the cool things you can use it for is you can ask it to tell your children a bedtime story.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is fun. But then again, maybe not. So if you tell it to, say, hey, I need you to write a sermon on this text, obviously that's not how any of us were trained, and probably none of us were taught that. But it's a real, it's a real issue.
Yeah, I think the issue that just jumps out at me, just totally screaming at me, is really plagiarism, in the sense that, of course, that was huge with Ed Litton and the SBC 2 years ago, and many others, and many. I mean, Moeller talked about it like 15 years ago, and there was a bunch of that. I even did some stuff on my YouTube channel about that, and looking at this sermon and borrowing, as it were. But what you're doing is you're using someone else's ideas. You're using intellectual property.
Yeah.
All three of us are individual men, pastors, church planters, or currently in ministries, doing all sorts of stuff. But we're born in different places, married to different women, different children, different families, different exposure, different everything. And so whether you're selling phones, you're a mechanic, you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a teacher, you're a pastor, you're digging ditches, whatever, you have different experiences, and you have different friends, and I have different friends than I did 10 years ago. And like that changes me. And that's part of living, part of being made in the image of God and expressing that out. And for us to, I mean, I'll say it, cheating, it's what you're doing. You're cheating. You're just saying, well, I don't really need to do this now. I mean, the art part, I mean, my background's in graphic design. I still do that from time to time. And I've helped churches and ministries, and I've worked full time that off and on for years. And in one sense, I don't want to sound like a Luddite that people, years ago with rejecting technology, but it's scary to use the term that you can just punch in, Michael Jordan slamming a basketball, dunking a basketball on a teammate or whatever. And you get this great art. I haven't tried it. I'm tempted, but even that, I'm like, I don't want to, I'm almost like stealing from my own creative community. These other people that we've trained years and learning the skills, learning this, looking at how light works, how this works, whether it's typography, whether it's, I'm working on book covers. I do stuff part-time for a company as well. And I'm working on different book covers. It's a Christian company, and they need stuff, and it needs to be quick. And I'm like, this is literally a couple years from now, they're just going to not even need me or anybody else. They'll just punch it in, and I've lost work. I mean, you're going to, like Bobby said, we're going to be out of a job.
And the reality, Richard, is
it's crazy.
The reality is that there are a lot of jobs that will go away because of this kind of technology. So, right. But the ethical question for us really, I think, is how can this, how do we not cross the line? And is there a way to protect against crossing the line, which I just say straight up, I'm not sure that there is. I think that goes back to the individual character and integrity of the minister, the teacher, whoever it is in that local church, about using it. I just see it as a different kind of a research tool. It's not the kind of research tool that like when I'm searching, let's say, for an illustration in my message, and I'm trying to find something that illustrates a huge storm, let's say, and so I'll type into my search engine, largest storm in the 20th century or something, or greatest storm recorded on a lake, or, I'll come something that I can see tying in some way with my idea that I'm preaching on. And I'll get a list of responses, and I, scan down through that, and I'll look and see, and I may get several hits from Wikipedia telling stories or whatever. But in this case, it may still generate to me a story, but it's not sourced. Okay, so it doesn't say where the sources are. I don't know where the material's gathered from. Just like I said a while ago, we were talking about the abortion issue. It may give you an opinion, but in ChatGPT, you don't know if that came primarily from like a Planned Parenthood site or from Family Research Council, right, or something in between, or both. You don't have it's not sourcing anything where it's drawing things. So, from the ministry perspective in the church, I think there's not a way to stop it being used.
Yeah,
it's out there. And young guys, not like me, I'm the old guy in this bunch, but younger guys, I mean, they've just grown up with AI. They've grown up in this. This is going to be part of their ministry development. And, what do we, I don't know. I'm not even sure what to ask, to be honest. I mean, how do you even train for this, like in a seminary setting or somewhere else? I'm not sure you do. Matt, how do you think that this can be possibly harnessed ethically as far as what we do in ministry? Let's start there.
I don't think you can harness it ethically. I don't think it's harnessable. I think because it all goes back to what you just said. It all goes back to an integrity issue, right? And what Richard's talking about, plagiarism and all of those things. The only way to teach it and train somebody on it is to tell them, just like they at least told me. I'm sure that you had guys tell y'all, hey, if you're going to use somebody's stuff, at least give them credit. I mean, if you're going to say this, there's nothing wrong with repeating X, Y, and Z that you've heard. I mean, I had a seminary professor say, we got back from chapel one day. He was a missions pastor. You know him. He's just gone on to be with the Lord. And he said, I never forget it. He came in. He said, boys, I'm gonna give you 15 minutes to fill out all your notes, because you can't preach that passage any better than we just heard it. And he said, but he gave us the instruction that as long as you're giving credit, as long as you are ethically saying, this is where I got it. And I used the illustration just a minute ago about the storytelling, having your kids told a story. Where are they even getting that information? Isn't that probably somebody's creative genius that they're just hijacking and saying, oh, here, we're gonna repackage this. I don't like this. What I don't like about this maybe as an overall problem is they have a built-in defense. This company, this AI stuff has got a built-in defense, because they're putting all the onus on the question asker. It's all on you. If you want the answer that you want about marriage, and your answer is going to come from the Bible, you better ask that thing in relationship to the Bible. What is marriage? And so again, it's still this system that we're all living in, of creating your own truth and being in your kind of in your own echo chamber. And so again, if somebody wants to preach sermons like Billy Graham, they're going to go in and put stuff like, hey, did Billy Graham ever talk about this doctrine? And ethically, you can't harness it. I don't think. I think it's an integrity issue that we're going to battle. I hate the fact that, what I hate about it is it's not like we don't have enough competition, and I shouldn't say competition, but we don't have enough challenges as it is when it comes to pastoring. I mean, because everybody, everybody's getting all this stuff, fed into their houses, all these preachers, some of these awesome orators, you're pastoring 50 people, and you got them listening to these other guys 6 days a week, and then you come. This is just, to me, another step in that direction of elevating some unethically, and then I think ultimately hurting some others.
Yeah,
Richard, let me ask you this. Let's kind of turn the curve there a little bit. How do you see, and this may be a stretch for you, but how do you see this kind of technology? And it's going to keep developing. It's going to keep getting more emotive. It's going to keep getting more where it can empathize. It feels like it empathizes, because it's designed to be conversational. It's designed to sound like it understands you. Okay. But how can we in ministry harness some of that in a positive way? Are there some things that we can do? Because this technology is not going away. It is not going away. It is going to stay with us. So how can we can't just say, hey, look, don't ever use it. It needs to just be off the table.
I would say that it is dangerous. I mean, if the thing is how it is, where it doesn't cite anything, and it just kind of gives, like Matt said, with the questioners, it's on him or her. I mean, you could say, how would Charles Spurgeon preach Genesis 1:1 through 1:5, and write out a sermon, or give me some illustrations that he would use, or my favorite, or this, or Augustine, or Polycarp, whatever, and look at these. I mean, likely this thing has adapted many of these things, and then you could just use that sermon, right? I don't know. I mean, I think you mentioned a moment ago, as far as finding maybe a title for something, or kind of getting the brainstorm going. But if you're like me, I'm reading stuff, and I have it each week is a little different, right? And I'll study a little different, read a little different, and depending on what book I'm reading, or I just saw a blog post or a tweet. Sometimes I'll plan on it, sometimes I won't, and I believe either my own spirit or the Holy Spirit will bring it up, and hey, this is what needs to be said to these real people in front of me at 11 o'clock at this time on this day. You can't mimic that, you can't copy that, and therefore, it makes you, if you're reliant upon something like this almost at all, I would say that's not good. I mean, I would personally look at it, and probably will, at least for the time being, as something kitschy and fun. You're right, it's not going away, but there's a lot of technology that's not going away, including, methods of abortion, or methods of, mutilating people and doing transgender surgery. Just because it's available doesn't mean we need to use it. And so I would caution strongly against using it, at least in any tangible way, because immediately, I mean, again, let's be real here for a moment. If someone gets plastic surgery, we'll just say, we'll keep it G-rated, a woman, we all know what I'm talking about. Everyone knows those are fake, right? They're not real. And there's this kind of barrier between, like, well, but they're fake, right? Like, it's not real. I'm not trying to be weird or anything, but I'm serious.
You're going down a rabbit hole I wasn't anticipating.
No, I know. I do that.
So you're comparing.
I'm just saying there's a fakeness to it, because it didn't come from the person. It didn't, this accumulated knowledge of your parents, grandparents, siblings, wife, children, all this stuff you're studying, your seminary experience, your life stories, your evangelism, your efforts over here, you skinned your knee when you were 9, all this stuff gets built into who you are. When you use something like this, whether it's the art side, which I mentioned earlier, which we haven't even looked at, and we won't, that's fine, or writing sermons, writing papers. I mean, people said this is the end of the college paper. You're stealing. I think you're stealing. I think you're cheating, and you're not being authentic at all, which, again, I would fold into the transhumanism stuff that I think they're trying to condition us for.
So we jumped off of how the positive can be used back onto the negative. So Matt,
I don't see much positive, honestly. I hate to be negative about it. I don't see much positive other than entertainment purposes.
Okay, well, no, that's fair though, because I asked your opinion. So Matt, do you see any possibilities, any ways that this kind of technology can develop? Because remember, it's a learning tool, and it's as much as anything, it's a predictive tool, trying to help predict kind of what you're wanting on your end. So I think you've hit the nail on the head as far as the way you ask the question is pretty critical. But Matt, do you see any positive uses that we can see in ministry?
I like it as informational. I don't hate it for that. I don't hate that. I'm gonna steal Richard's intellectual property right now while we're talking. But you spurred my brain a little bit when you said, how would Spurgeon preach Genesis 1:1 through 1:5? Mm-hmm. I would, for me, I'm just sitting here thinking, I would want to know, let's say I'm preaching on the woman at the well has been brought up. I think it'd be really cool to ask the question, what did Spurgeon say about the woman at the well? Mm-hmm. What has Piper said about the woman at the well? I think it'd be, because I like quotes.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
I like giving credit too. I try not to. Eventually, if you say it enough times, it becomes yours. I think.
That's right.
Unfortunately, it just happens sometimes. But I like that idea. I mean, I think in fact, I'll probably try it this weekend. Of just saying, okay, what did my favorite preacher, pastor, theologian say about this particular text? Mm-hmm. I like the illustration idea. I don't necessarily, I think illustrations are better when they're from us, but I also understand that there is some stuff, like you said, Bobby, about the biggest storm in the 20th century. I think those are interesting. And let's just be honest, if you're writing enough sermons and you're trying to do enough creative work, there's going to be days, there's going to be weeks where there's blocks or there's things in the way. And then we have to go back, of course, and balance out, okay, what is that? Is that Holy Spirit saying, don't do this? Or is this okay? Again, it all goes back to what do we believe? And then I'm not worried about this technology. It's scary in the sense that my people may use it. And I think there's going to have to be a real conversation in churches. There needs to be a real conversation in churches as this hits mainstream and hits our people wherever we are, and at least have that conversation. And I think the explanation is there. I think it would do good for us to share this talk that we're having right now, especially for the first opening explanation that you gave, that, hey, this is human based. This is not options. This is not, they're not polling the internet. They're making these decisions based on what the body's responding with. So I don't think it's all trash.
Yeah, well, and it's continuing to learn, it's continuing to develop, because that's the nature of this kind of AI. When you talk about the idea of illustrations or stories, I can see this as being something that would save us as ministers or teachers an enormous amount of time in some ways, because it's the funnel. Okay, so just take the storm illustration I used a while ago. Tell me about the largest storms in the 20th century. Okay, in a search engine, I'm going to get a number of different responses. Okay, so now I've got to take time, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to look, say, no, that one doesn't really work. No, that one doesn't really work. Well, now that's interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to hold that one. Now let's look at and I'm reading 3, 4, 5 different, stories told as such. And then I'm going back and making a decision. In the ChatGPT situation, if you are clear enough with, I want to know about the largest storms on sea or on the Great Lakes. Let's do that. The largest storms on the Great Lakes in the 20th century that ended in a shipwreck. Okay, that's pretty specific, right? Now it's going to gather all the information it has, it's going to funnel that down, and now it's going to give me a response. I can respond back to it asking specific questions, will give me more details on, give me more specifics on whatever that would kind of fill that out and develop it based on my questioning. These are the questions coming in my head. Yeah. I'm not reading what somebody else has written necessarily, like in articles, and having to myself process and funnel all that. I'm just asking the question, well, can you tell me more about this part of it? And it keeps developing it. So I can see that. But here's what I see as one of the biggest, if not the biggest, downside of this for ministers, teachers, those who have a public ministry that they want to hold integrity and stuff. And that's what we mentioned a while ago, the lack of sourcing. There may be some great information there that we can use. I don't have a problem with that to a point, but I'm like you, Matt. I want to be able to say, well, you use Charles Spurgeon. Well, Charles Spurgeon one time said that, and be able to give that, even if I don't give the exact quote. Or I remember, I heard a pastor when I was growing up, and he told the story about, those kind of things. You want to try to give credit so people don't do, as you've probably had, as I have over time, somebody come up to you after a service or something, and you've told a story, and they go, was that really true? Yeah. Is that really true? And I've had that happen several times, and I'm grateful every time I've been able to say, yeah, it's really true. And it was my story. It's what happened to me, or what I actually read that was documented. So this doesn't give you any kind of sourcing. And
no,
to me, I still feel like I can maybe use it, but I just think I may feel a little funny this Sunday if I stand up in the pulpit and I say, I got this great story about this from ChatGPT, and ChatGPT told me.
Yeah. Well, it's not authentic. I mean, to me, again, it chafes in a lot of ways. And I'm not trying to, again, I have a smartphone. Here it is right here, right? Like, we're on computers, right. But like, there's so much, especially in the last 5 years, even the last 3 years, of like I'm tired of people. Well, that's just a slippery slope argument. Well, you're just, and they name call. You're a Luddite, which, again, was a group like 300 years ago. They rejected.
Yeah, don't go down that rabbit hole again.
No, but I'm just saying, like, but there are extreme dangers. I mean, we saw this with same-sex marriage. Like, we just want to get married, and now we have drag queen story hour, and not just story hour, but strip clubs. And it's like, y'all, hello, like, this is where this goes. I'm not saying you use this, you're going to go to drag shows. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that once you open Pandora's box, there is, especially if you're getting intellectual property, tell me a story, write a story for me, write my paper for me, write even a blog post or a title or something. Then I say, no, I would say absolutely not for me. I'm not even going to go down that temptation for me.
Okay.
As
Matt,
far
what do
as
you think?
research, hey, what did Spurgeon say about this?
Go ahead and say research. Yeah.
Yeah, no, just like, what did, Spurgeon say? One of my favorites too. How, the woman at the well, like Matt said, how many times did he talk about this, or give a good story about a quote from Spurgeon regarding the woman at the well? Yeah, praise God, because now you can see that, like you did with the Bible verses. It gave 4 solid Bible verses. Cool. It didn't appeal to it when you left it open. You kind of had to corner it and say, talk to me, machine that's really run by people. Talk to me about the Bible. Okay, I will. Otherwise, hey, paint me a picture about something cool.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? Oh, yeah. And then you hold it up in the art and you sell it online. And all of a sudden you literally did click, click, click. And meanwhile, you're doing something else with your life, not using intellectual creativity or anything like that. And then I don't want to use the word fraud, but like, then you're just lying. Like, all these words kind of go hand in hand. Anyway,
well, and remember,
I think it's very dangerous.
You're a fraud.
It's gathering information, it's getting feedback, and the nature of this kind of AI is it continues to grow, right? So and I showed you the chart in the beginning, how people have trained it and started developing it. They give it parameters, here's kind of the boundaries you're in, and it continues to grow and develop from information that it's being fed by all kinds of people. I mean, what I put in last night, in the test mode, when I put all those questions in, all that's fed into their total database. It's a massive kind of database. So it's going to keep growing. But again, it's not sourcing that information is what bothers me. Well, look, guys, let's wrap up. We've been on here about an hour. Matt, let me come to you first. What would be your thoughts if you had to kind of put this in a nutshell to, a Bible study teacher, a Sunday school teacher, a pastor, someone else who thinks, man, this is great technology. That's really cool. And it's going to have some tremendous uses, I think, in our society. There are going to be some things that it's going to be of tremendous benefit long term. But when it comes to ministry, when it comes to what we do in churches, Matt, kind of what would be your last word you would like to put into it, whether it be warning or caution?
Well, I hate to do it generically because I feel like now I'm part of the machine.
Okay. This is Chat Matt.
But generically, I would say reserve it for information. And specific information. If you're gonna, they're gonna use it. I would try to talk all of my Sunday school teachers off the ledge of using it at all, because there's just too much temptation there. On this, as young as it is, and again, if I was discipling pastors, the older they are, the more I would say, hey, you can look at this and use your wisdom. The young guys, I wouldn't do it because again. And I guess maybe we're going to have to wait till academia makes a decision here and probably deals with it. I mean, I know we are. You started to ask me earlier, would I use it for sermons, or I wouldn't use it for anything outside of citable information. And the problem with that is the onus is on me in how I ask the question. And right. So I don't even know how sure I am yet about. I would have to mess with it for a while to kind of get to the point where I felt comfortable asking the right question so that I could cite it properly. But I'd say for now, let's don't go name it the next best thing that everybody needs to get involved with, especially ministerially speaking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Richard, what would be your encouragement as far as individuals using this kind of a tool that is hitting the internet by storm, no doubt?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, this is glaringly obvious. Just one more example of having a deep Christian biblical worldview, and having both to be able to discern what's going on, like asking about a woman or a marriage, or, why do I feel lonely and depressed, etc. You can read these things and it's like, well, to alleviate depression, go, take deep breaths. Well, is that really going to help? I don't know. But somebody might think that, especially as a Christian or a baby Christian, and think, yeah, I'll do that. And it didn't work. What's going on? Oh, no. As opposed to running to the scripture and getting your discernment from that. I would say, secondly, that this just proves that God exists. Because we have these things here, that this AI that's very truncated and still, new, and I would argue still never will be human in any capacity, or even like human, although they want to say that it is. But we designed this, and yet we came by chance over billions of years. Like, come on. So I would say, just as a worldview aspect, to say, okay, who designed this little chat thing? Well, who? And people did. So who designed people? Mother Nature. Like, so yeah, again, with Matt, I would say use it as citable stuff. Maybe play around with it. Maybe, create a story or something like that just for fun. Or, I mean, I found it's a few-minute thing. It's like on Netflix, the YouTube channel Netflix. And it was, they have a few different things. And it was a Christmas story written by bots. And it had like cheesy animation, and it's hilariously terrible. Like, it makes no sense, but it watches a bunch of Christmas stories. It was all Christmas, like tons and tons of Christmas stories. And it was a Christmas carol about a woman named Carol, who was named Carol, was like the title of it. And it's just like, Santa's here, and there's this, and just, this is elf number 27. I'm going to magically change you to human 27. Go date Carol, so she will not be lonely on Christmas morning. Like, and it's just so weird and generic, and it's funny, but nobody's taking it seriously. And so if you're going to use something like that, I would say you have to have extreme caution, and you have to have a robust Christian worldview, because otherwise you might just get sucked up in the tide when you're looking over and like, well, look at that waterfall, and you just fall in and get sucked into the river. Like, technology moves so fast, so fast, that we have to be really, really cautious.
Yeah, I think that this technology, and there will be others that develop the technology. Right now, it appears that OpenAI is trying to keep a pretty good harness on. You can ask a question
Hopefully.
that would be, something like a bomb building or something of that sort, and it says, "I'm sorry, that's inappropriate to ask." It's got some guardrails in there about some of those kind of things. So OpenAI is right now trying to harness this in a pretty ethical way as far as the whole process of it. But there will be competition. There are others who are developing the same kinds of things, and this whole thing is going. It's going to impact our society worldwide, ultimately and eventually. So I think this really is something that we need to keep a close eye on. Really be watching. Consider as ministers and churches what are the possible benefits and the uses of it, in the future, but move very, very cautiously. I think we need to move very, very cautiously. And there really need to be guys like us that are kind of boots on the ground, who are dealing with this, and not just academicians. Academicians oftentimes look at it in a very static kind of a way, just with pluses and minuses down on a sheet or a chart, and it doesn't really play out in real life quite like that. So I think we need to move with great caution, need to stay alert to it. It's going to continue to develop at a rapid pace. I don't think in any way, shape, or form it's going to replace ministers. And let me say it this way, because even though this poses relationally, conversationally, I think the human creation desires and longs for human interaction. And so there are a lot of things that are probably going to be replaced. If you go into the doctor and you need to have a radiological report read, computer can read that, do a better job probably than a human can, and get that information. And that's going to be okay. Not for the radiologist, but you know what I'm saying. The computer will be a fine replacement for that. computer will never be a replacement, I think, for pastors, for ministers, for those who lead our congregations in worship. It's just not going to be possible, because there is that human element, that relational element that humans have. A lot of things are going to change. So that's my word. We just need to proceed with great caution.